And we are live for another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host, Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, it is finally time for us to once again preview another season of college football for the upcoming 2025-2026 season, coming off an Ohio State National Championship just last season. The Buckeyes will look to repeat this year as the champions once again. They will have a little bit of a different team from last year's national championship team, but there is a big time slated games going on in week one that includes that very same Ohio State team, which will be the game of the week for sure. Could be the game of the entire year. And that's just to consider the fact that it's only week one we're coming up into. And we already might have a game of the year candidate on our way.
Yeah, I can't believe it's another year of college football coming up this weekend. We already had week 0 technically, but
Yeah,
only really one ranked game that happened overseas, and there are a couple
it was
others.
a good one.
Hawaii beating Stanford. What?
Hey, listen, shout out the Rainbow Warriors, man. Shout out the Rainbow Warriors. Gotta love what Hawaii's doing right now. But yeah, as you mentioned, week zero just happened. We had that game in Dublin between Kansas State and Iowa State, and that was a little bit of a preview for the Big 12 of what could potentially happen this season. Because as we know, as we saw last season, that was a conference that was pretty much wide open, and we'll break that down in a little bit here on the show. Obviously, for those that are new listening onto the show, what we basically do every single preview for each, whether it's college football, college basketball, NFL, NBA, MLB, you name it, we preview it. We're going to be doing a preview of the college football season for the upcoming year. We'll give our thoughts on the first rankings of this upcoming college football season, that being the AP Top 25. We'll then go into a preview of the Power Four conferences. We'll start that one in just a little bit. And then we will make our picks for the second year of the college football playoff, which does have a little bit of a new wrinkle to it for this upcoming season. And then, of course, it's everybody's favorite moment of the show, the mushing hour, which will be taking place a little bit later towards the end of our show. We have 7 huge games upcoming this weekend in college football. And Johnson, you and I will look to at least improve our record after a very rough 2024-2025 season. So hopefully our records will be a little bit better for the viewers at home, listening, or the listeners at home, I should be saying, once we make our picks later on here in the show.
Yeah, so the good thing is we're gonna wipe the slate clean because I was way
Yes.
under 500 and you were slightly under 500. So
Yes.
that's the good thing. So we're gonna wipe the slate. We're gonna fix our record, and we can go straight into it, Nick. So take us home.
Let's start with the top 25 ranking shots. As I just mentioned, this is the first top 25 of the season. Not many things I would say stand out to me when looking at this. It's kind of what I've somewhat expected. I think maybe the only thing that people were kind of, maybe surprised, I don't want to say perplexed, but maybe surprised about is that, the defending champions are the number 3 team in the country, which is to be expected because you're coming off a year where obviously your best offensive player and Will Howard, I shouldn't say they're all best offensive player, but their quarterback left for the NFL draft, of course, after graduating. You also lost Jack Sawyer, who was the heart and soul of that defense last year for that Buckeye team. But they still got a very talented roster up and down the entirety of the team. And they go into the season as the number 3 team in the country. The Texas Longhorns will be the number 1 team in the country going into the season. They of course, had the big storyline of Arch Manning finally getting the opportunity to be the starting quarterback for this Longhorns team. He's been waiting under the wing of Quinn Ewers the last 2 seasons. He now finally gets his chance this year with the Longhorns, and he's got a really tough test upcoming this weekend to see how his first official. I know he's had a start before in college football, but this is his first true test as a starter in his collegiate career. Other top 10 teams, we have Penn State at number 2, Clemson number 4, Georgia number 5, Notre Dame number 6, Oregon number 7, Alabama number 8, LSU number 9, and then rounding out the top 10 is Miami at number 10. We also have a lot of Big 12 teams in this top 25, which kind of expected that because, as I mentioned earlier on, that conference is pretty much wide open. I think you can make a case for mostly every single team in that conference to potentially win the conference at the end of the year. I have a couple of ACC teams as well. We saw what happened with SMU last season being a very surprising team, not only in the ACC, but in college football in general. We also see Indiana after their surprise run of the college football playoff. They are in at number 20. And I think also the other standout probably, seeing Boise State in the top 25 is a nice start for them. Obviously making the college football playoff last year. But what's going to happen for that team without Ashton Jeanty no longer on the teams? That is an interesting wrinkle to bring out going into this year. And of course, also Michigan, after a really rough 2024-2025 season, that did end with a win against Ohio State, at least for them. They go into the season as the 14th ranked team in the country with highly touted quarterback Bryce Underwood getting the start as the true freshman. Johnson, what were your thoughts on this top 25 rankings when you first saw them?
I think they mainly got it right. Like the top 25 in general has been pretty bad the last couple of years, and I think preseason wise, I think they got it right. I think that's right. I think they're right to have Ohio State the third best team in the country because it's not going to be that continuity last year. You're going to have Arch Manning under center in Texas, so there's at least some continuity there. He's been in the system for a couple of years. That's great, right? Other teams like Notre Dame, they're six, right? So Notre Dame doesn't really have that heavy of a schedule. Again, they're going to play early on Miami and Texas A&M, but that's it, right? So unless Syracuse has a miracle season or Pitt's really good, we know Stanford's not good. They just lost to Hawaii. So we're going to discount Stanford for having any late season heroics here. BC will be whatever. USC will be whatever. So Notre Dame's entire season is going to depend on these first 3 weeks of the season because they're going to have a week off on September 6th. So we've got Miami, bye week, Texas A&M. So I want to kind of throw them out there because they're always a popular team that has a large we call them Subway alumni here in the city. It's a university that doesn't have a lot of alums, but they have a lot of fans. So we're going to call them the Subway alumni from Notre Dame, even though that's what you're not supposed to call them. They have a large following all over the country, so I'm going to talk about them a little bit. Then you go over to like the top 15, right? Like Illinois, right? They're ranked 12. Do you really expect them to make the playoffs at the end of the year? No. Arizona State at 11. No.
Illinois, the only reason they wouldn't make it is because of how good the Big Ten is. Illinois has a good roster. They have a good roster, but the Big Ten is just so stacked right now. It's really going to be impossible.
So here's my question to you. Do you think they beat Ohio State?
Illinois?
In the regular season. Yeah, in the regular season.
Probably not.
Yeah, so that's what's really good. That's what's really good to depend on. Because I don't see them make it to the title game. I also don't see them beating Ohio State.
So because they would have to have what Indiana had last season, where they were a one-loss Big Ten team. Your only loss was to Ohio State, and you beat everybody else. And if you look at their schedule, I wouldn't say it's easy because Duke, I think, is a very underrated team in the ACC. I think they're a sleeper in the ACC. You never know what you're going to get out of USC. Maybe you pull off an upset here and there, but they're not the same USC as we know from years past. Ohio State, of course, is a monster game for them at home. If they could pull off that upset, that would be huge for them. And people are expecting Washington to really have a bounce-back season this year. Last year was a down year after making the national championship game just the year prior. But a lot of people are expecting the Huskies to have a bounce-back year going into 2025, 2026. So I wouldn't say it's easy for the Illini.
That I think is a sleeper in this 12 to 15, in this 10 to 15 range. I think it's going to make the playoffs. Is South Carolina. That's my bold prediction here. Because they have a couple teams. They have Virginia Tech and South Carolina State to start off the first couple weeks of the season. So there should be some hype to them. They're playing Vanderbilt, which again, anyone who's seen
the same Vanderbilt team they were last year.
They're not the same Vanderbilt they are last year. However, if there's a place you want to play, or a team you want to play against in the SEC, it's Vanderbilt. So they could start off the season 3-0, and then they have Missouri, Kentucky, winnable games, but then the absolute back half of the season.
Yeah, it's a gauntlet at the end of the season.
You're at LSU, you're hosting Oklahoma and Bama, then you're at Ole Miss and A&M, then you have a break with Coastal Carolina, which could be a sleeper team. In the Sun Belt,
and then yes,
in the Sun Belt, and then they're gonna end the year of Clemson. So South Carolina, I think since they have a high preseason ranking, Lenora Sellers is a very dynamic quarterback that already has national eyes on him. So they start off the year 3-0, and then they split Missouri, Kentucky, and they're 4-1 heading to LSU, going into Death Valley, and they just kind of go 500 the way out. So that's 4, 5. I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4. If they're a 4-loss team going into the college football playoffs, and the rest of the bubble isn't that strong, I can really see them making it. It's going to depend on the strength of schedule for the SEC. but this is my sleeper team out of this kind of range over here.
Yeah.
And to kind of sum up everyone else, I mean, I'm not expecting Kansas State. I want to see A&M do it, but not going to make it. But the only other teams I could see making the playoffs, it's going to be Boise State out of this group because of that group of five rule. So
Right. Yeah, one group of five teams still gets in, and that's something that we'll discuss later on. There is, as I mentioned earlier on, there is a new format for the top 25. Not too much of a there's only a difference of the seeding that it comes down to for the playoff. It's still the same criteria where the top 11 teams get in. The last team in is going to be that group of five team, more than likely, depending on where they're ranked. And Boise State right now has a nice little bit of a head start, being that 25th ranked team in the country. So that's a good thing for the Broncos if they want to get back to the college football playoff after making it last season. So I think with that, Johnson, let's go into our previews then for this upcoming season in terms of the Power Four conferences. And let's start off with the ACC. Now, if you look at this conference, obviously the biggest storylines going into the conference are the top two of the top 10 teams in the country, that being Clemson and Miami. Clemson, of course, made the college football playoff last year after beating SMU in the ACC championship game. And now they come into the season as a top five team in the country. They're looking like a team that a lot of people are expecting to potentially win the national championship this season. That's because of their star quarterback, Cade Klubnik. Now, the other side of things, Miami, they did have a great year out of Cam Ward. More than likely should have been in the college football playoff, but their team's defense was a huge reason why they missed the college football playoff last season. So, what they did in the offseason to replace Cam Ward in the offensive side of the ball is they got Carson Beck, the former Georgia quarterback. He's now going to be the starting quarterback for the Hurricanes this upcoming season. So, it's kind of curious to see where you're leaning towards in the ACC. For me, it looks like Clemson is the clear-cut favorite. If you look at the odds makers for this conference, it's pretty much Clemson's to lose. Miami probably with the second best odds in the conference to win it. And then everyone else is pretty much, looking to try to make have a decent year, win 8 to 9 games, but nothing near close to winning an ACC championship.
yeah, I'm going with Clemson here too. Dabo is hungry. He is hungry. Now I know
Yeah.
they made the college football playoffs last year. They lost in the first round. However, you mentioned Cade, awesome quarterback. He had a fantastic junior year. He's gonna even better. He's gonna be even better this year. Dabo, you'd say the best season Dabo's had post COVID is the year when they won the Cheez It Bowl and they went 10-3 in 2021 because they
Yeah.
lost in the Orange Bowl. The Gator Bowl didn't mean anything, and they lost in college football playoffs last year. So he is overdue from either making a deep run in the college football playoffs, making the national championship game, losing it, whatever it is. But they're due, and this is Clemson's time to shine. This is put up or shut up for Dabo this year.
Yeah, I would be very surprised if Clemson didn't win it. I think the only teams that maybe have a shot, Miami obviously is probably the second best chance. That's not saying much. Um, I think the other team I really like, I talked about them earlier. I like Duke as a potential sleeper in this conference, getting Mensa from Tulane as a transfer quarterback. One of the better transfer quarterbacks in the portal this past season. So they're a team that I would look at. Maybe they play Clemson in the ACC championship game. I know you're looking forward to seeing Bill Belichick, of course. That'd be another big storyline going into the conference. He is now the head coach at North Carolina. So there's some interesting storylines with the ACC, regardless of it being top heavy for Clemson and maybe Miami. There are still some other storylines around the conference itself to seeing how it all unfolds this upcoming season. But I'm going to go with you as well. I'm going to go with Clemson. I just, like I said, I think it just would be stunning if they didn't win this conference, and I just don't really see a scenario. I'm looking if you look at their schedule, also Johnson, that's something also to look at. You obviously have that game against South Carolina you mentioned earlier on when they were talking about their schedule. They start the season off with a very tough test, hosting number 9 LSU. After that, it doesn't really get, not much daunting task on the schedule. SMU, in my opinion, is probably not going to do what they did last season. They lost a lot of talent from last year. They did bring back their starting quarterback, which does help. But I don't think they're the same team as that we saw in the ACC championship game from the previous year. I think Clemson has a really good shot at going undefeated this season and finishing 12-0.
So yeah, let's go talk about the Big 12 now. Let's talk about what happened in the offseason. Uh,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
guess they're the third best team by the third best conference by default in this division. I guess
well, let's think
in
about the
college football.
conference. Let's think
I
about the
mean,
conference
no one
itself.
really. It is the most wide open out of all these
It's the
other
most
divisions.
wide
I
open
will
by
say.
far. Yes. Yes. And if you look at what is going on for the conference, obviously the defending champions, Arizona State, lost a lot of talent, including, of course, their star player, Cam Scottaboo, to the NFL draft. But a lot of people are still expecting them to be the top, the favorite right now in this conference going into the season. However, as you just mentioned, and I mentioned earlier on too as well, anyone in this conference could make the case as, yes, I'm going to win this conference because it's that wide open. I think the only team, I don't really think there's a team that I could say, yeah, no, they're not going to win it. They'll probably be at the end of the season, of course, but it's just that wide open in
UCF,
my opinion.
UCF, Oklahoma State, and
And
West
probably Oklahoma
Virginia.
State. Yeah, West Virginia just because they're in a rich rod rebuild, but even then they'll probably have a better season than they did last year.
Yeah.
I think for me, it really comes down to as what did I see in this, recruiting slash transfer portal stage that is going to lean me towards one of these teams being my favorite to win this conference. I don't know if that's how you're looking at it, but that's what I'm looking at in terms of, you know, trying to figure out who I think is the favorite for this conference and who do I think is going to make the college football playoff by
So
winning this
this
conference.
this is my logic here. I'm picking Colorado.
Ooh,
This is gonna be spicy. I know.
that is
Oh my god,
spicy.
how can are you really jumping on the Deion Sanders bandwagon a year late? No, this is my logic, right? I think Kydon Salter is a better quarterback than Shador Sanders. I think he's gonna have the
That is another
opportunity.
interesting take. Okay.
It's a bold statement. I think he has the physical tools and he's going to be able to recreate that magic he had at Liberty a couple of years ago. I know he was injured last year. He wasn't that great. Whatever. Bounce back season, new offense. He's going to look great. And the Big 12 is such a crapshoot. You can't tell me for straight face. Oh, yeah, Arizona State has this, or Texas Tech has this, Utah has this. Oh, it's Baylor. We just saw Iowa State, Kansas State, which is considered to be the upper middle of the pack teams, which I would kind of put in the tier right below Colorado, right above Colorado, but right below, let's say, Texas Tech and Utah and Arizona
Yeah.
State. So that kind of like that middle ground. And they look like two JV teams out there. You can't tell me that with all the swagger that Dion's going to instill in these Buffaloes that they just can't have the confidence after they beat Georgia Tech, Delaware. They play Houston, which is a terrible, terrible team, Big 12. Then they play Wyoming. They should be 4-0, and they're hosting BYU. They should be 5-0 to start off the year. And then by that point, the rest of the Big 12 is a crapshoot. And they're playing a team like West Virginia later in the year, which we know they're going to beat. So you could say their floor is about 6 wins. Is that fair?
I guess so, yeah. I think their over under for the year is 5.5, I think.
Yeah, I could see them smashing that easily. I mean, I can't see. They're gonna beat
Year to year.
Arizona. They're gonna beat West Virginia. They're gonna beat Houston. And what do you think? They're gonna lose to Delaware, Wyoming? Like,
Yeah, I
come
think
on. And
Arizona
they,
I think Arizona to me is the worst team in the conference, so they should beat them.
yeah. So to me, their floor should be 6 wins. To get over under 5.5 wins, their floor should be 6 wins.
I think the only thing with them is how do we feel about their defense? Which again, the Big 12 is not known for defense, but someone in this conference is going to have to play just enough defense to the point where it's going to work out. Of course, obviously for Colorado, the biggest losses, of course, were their star players last year and Shador and Travis Hunter. And you can replace Shador Sanders, that's fine and dandy, but it's pretty much impossible to replace what Travis Hunter did for you. Not only in the receiving aspect, but of course being the number one lockdown corner as well. That's what probably concerns me for Colorado going into the season. I still think they can get above that 5.5 threshold if that's the over under they have. But I'll give you this: it'd be a miracle if DL would be doing a lot of miracle working if they were able to overcome all that loss that they had in the offseason and still come out on top as a Big 12 champion, considering that last year's team was, in my opinion, a lot better than this team coming up this season.
So
So
who's your pick?
For me, I'm going to go with Utah. That was the team that you took, I believe, last season as your Big 12 champion, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. Yeah, last year you took Utah, I took Oklahoma State, and they both had pretty bad seasons. Now, here's why I'm going to go with Utah, and it comes down to another reason why I was looking at what they did in the portal. And one of the things they did in the portal was add one of the the more underrated quarterbacks I thought in last season's college football season, which was Devin Dampier out of New Mexico. He was doing a nice job with the Lobos, and now he comes to Utah, who arguably has the best offensive line in the entire country. So that's saying something. They're going to be going to a style of play where you have a lot of time in the pocket with your offensive line. So Dampier, who could also run the ball at an efficient rate too, he could be that dual threat quarterback that Utah desperately could need. And I think that they're right now a team for me that I think could get the job done and win the Big 12. It was between them and Texas Tech for me, but I feel like, as much as they added in the transfer portal, which is going to help them a lot, and I think they'll be there in contention, I just think Utah having that much depth at the offensive line and knowing what they've done in years past defensively, I think that's going to help them finally get back into where they're expecting to be in this conference. Because last year was a 5-7 year. That's not what they were expecting at all when they jumped from the Pac 12 to the Big 12. They're expecting to win championships. I think they get the job done this year and win the Big 12 by, just pretty much dominating on both sides of the ball.
I guess only time will tell. Let's talk about the Big Ten, the second most competitive conference. But I will say it is the most top heavy. They have the heaviest hitters this year
Yeah.
when it comes to the top five. Want to look
Yeah, I
outside the
mean,
top five? Yeah, it's the SEC, but the top five, it's the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you just say Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon, that already should say wonders. And then who knows if Michigan goes back to what they were just a couple seasons ago. I mean, I'm not saying they will do that, but if they do get back to that form, then only time's going to tell if the Wolverines are back into contention with those top three. But yeah, looking at these teams in general, we talked about in Illinois a little bit earlier on. Indiana, of course, had a magical season last year, but they did lose a little bit, so we'll see if they have that run in them again. Michigan, we spoke about with Bryce Underwood. Obviously, of course, the suspensions for Sherman Moore and everything happened, so I believe, he's suspended for the first two games of the season. So that shouldn't affect Michigan the first two games because those are games that they should win. Um, you look at Ohio State, obviously a lot new things going on for them. Of course, one of your old friends in New England, Matt Patricia, now the new defensive coordinator for this Buckeyes team. And if you look at the Buckeyes schedule, of course, their big three games, in my opinion, are the Texas game upcoming. They're going to be hosting Penn State. And then, of course, the game at Ann Arbor this year, a game which they haven't won in a couple years. It's been a little bit of time since they've beaten Michigan. So they need to get that monkey off of their back if they're going to get the job done. Penn State, to talk about them for a little bit, the biggest thing for them, I think the only thing that puts them in contention over the other teams is that they're at least returning their star quarterback from last season in Drew Aller. Now, I get it. Aller does have some faults against him because he does tend to be a little bit of a, quarterback that does tend to make some mistakes. If they fix those mistakes, and Aller could be in Heisman Trophy contention for the upcoming season. But the problem for Penn State this season, I think, is going to be look at their schedule. They're hosting Oregon. They're going to Ohio State. But outside of those two games, if you look at it, they're games that they could probably win. They could realistically be in a scenario where they're either a 10-2 playoff team, maybe 11-1, and if everything goes right, maybe they go into Columbus and knock off Ohio State, and they could be playing for the Big Ten championship game once again. And then final team I'll summarize before we make our picks. Oregon, of course, losing Dylan Gabriel does hurt a lot at the quarterback helm. We'll see what Dante Moore can do for this Ducks team for the upcoming season. But if you look at Oregon's schedule, it's not an easy schedule for the Ducks this year. There's a possibility that they have a little bit of a faulting this season and maybe lose 3 to 4 games, in my opinion. Because, as I mentioned, I think Washington's going to be a little bit better for this upcoming year. I think Iowa will also be a little bit better this season as well. And they're going to Iowa for that game. They'll play at Happy Valley, as I mentioned earlier on as well. So that could be 3 losses right there for this Ducks team. I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for them this year to get back to the college football playoff. I don't think they'll repeat as Big Ten champions either. So, with that being said, who do you have as your Big Ten champion?
Man, with the Oregon downfall you're talking about here, I have to pick him not only to make the playoffs, but to win the
Oh,
Big Ten championship again. I don't believe
okay.
in Ohio State, nor do I believe in James Franklin. So
That's,
I
yeah,
think
I get
Ohio,
it.
picture this. Oregon and Ohio State are tied going into the final week of the season, right?
And the game
Ohio
happens. Yep.
State has the tiebreaker. The game happens and Ohio State loses. Oregon wins the Big Ten.
I mean, it happened last year. That's exactly what happened.
I
Although it
mean,
was Ohio, it wasn't Ohio State. It was Penn State
yes,
and Ohio State in the tiebreaker, and then of course that happened. Yeah,
it happened so nice. It's going to be so nice. It's going to happen twice. Believe me. So who do you have win the Big Ten?
it's tough because I'm between Ohio State and Penn State, and it really comes down to who do I trust more between those two coaches. Ryan Day, obviously,
Neither of
to
them.
some people, I mean, to some people, he broke the, can I trust you phase by winning the national championship last season, I guess. But
Well,
I still want,
$20 million football team will do that.
yeah. I think the best thing over Ohio State is that their defense it should be still good this season. It's not as good as their defense from last season, but it still should be a top 5 defense in my opinion for the upcoming year. I can't believe I'm going to do it. I'm going to go with Penn State. I'm going to pick the Nittany Lions as my Big Ten champion. I don't trust it. I don't want to trust it, but I need to get the job done. And yeah, I guess we'll see. I'll probably be let down probably by mid-October. That's usually what happens. But let's go into the final conference, Johnson. And of course, that's the big one, the SEC.
Yep,
And
big boy football.
yeah,
Members of the listen, like I said before, the top 25 or the top 5 may be all Big Ten schools because of the current climate. But you look at teams 1, 5, 8, 9, 13, 15. That's all SEC.
I mean, there's 10 teams in this conference that are ranked. 10. If I did my math correct, at least.
Yeah, it's a very
Bama,
deep conference.
Florida, Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and Texas are all ranked, and I believe Missouri was one of the first teams out.
They are receiving votes, but BYU is the first team out.
Okay, I think Missouri
they're like around 30. They're
yeah,
around 30.
yeah,
All around like 31, 32.
right. Yeah, I mean, we saw what this conference did last season and how special of a year it was. Of course, obviously, no one won the national championship. That's obviously not what this conference, is meant. They're the conference of champions, as everyone likes to call them. But this could be, in my opinion, the bounce back year for this SEC. The problem is going to be this: these teams are probably so good that they're going to beat up on each other, which is where it gets dicey because having to pick a champion out of this conference is where it's tough. Because, you look at what happened for some of these teams. Bama, of course, no longer having Jalen Milroe. Now they're going to Ty Simpson, the former Notre Dame quarterback. Texas, of course, is going to have Arch Manning, as I mentioned earlier on. Georgia losing Carson Beck to the transfer portal now goes to Stockton, who we saw in that college football playoff game against Notre Dame this past season. Tennessee, of course, had that drama with Nico. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name because we tried so many times last season. But you get my point. They have Aguilar from UCLA coming in the transfer to be their starting quarterback. LSU brings back Nussmeier, which is huge for them. And then Ole Miss loses Dart to the draft. A&M, there'll be an interesting to see what they do. Of course, this season they're always known for being right there, usually towards the end of the season, and then just not winning that big game towards the end. No offense, Johnson, I wasn't trying to bring that up, but that is unfortunately what's been the narrative for the Aggies. And then the final two news I think we talk about are what teams we talked about earlier in South Carolina, which you mentioned. And let's also not forget Florida, what they did last season. They had a very, very shocking season. And DJ Lagway is probably one of the Heisman favorites right now coming into this upcoming season. But just like South Carolina, Johnson, Florida, has pretty much a daunting schedule this season as well. It is not easy for Florida. Let me read off this 3-week stretch for you, Johnson. At Miami, home against. Actually, I should say no, 4 games. I'm sorry. Let me do this again. At LSU, at Miami, home against Texas, at Texas A&M. That's a 4-week game stretch that Florida has in a row. Not easy at all, and they still
worse
have to
than
play,
last year.
and they still have to play Georgia, and they have to still go to Ole Miss, and they still have to play Tennessee. So it's going to be tough, but maybe Florida does what they did last season, as you just mentioned. So it's going to be, well, I'm interested to see how it all unfolds. Who do you have as winning this tough conference, though? Who do you think gets the job done?
At the end of the day, LSU will be the winner of this conference. I'm going to go with the experienced QB. It's not really the quote unquote smart pick because you have Bama, you have Texas, you have
Didn't
Georgia.
you just tell me you didn't trust James Franklin?
What's the issue?
You don't trust. You trust Brian Kelly?
Brian Kelly is a man of integrity. Which, if you watch the documentary this past season, he handled himself with class. So I'm going to trust Brian Kelly to get it done. Listen,
Brian Kelly's whole thing make me feel better about this pick.
Brian Kelly couldn't win the whole couldn't win the whole thing. However, I think he can win I think he can win a conference. I think he can do that. I don't think he can win a national championship, but I think he can win a conference. I think he can go 11-1 and win a conference.
You think they're gonna go 11-1? Really?
No, like he can do that. They're definitely not gonna go 11-1.
Okay. What do you think they're gonna finish with?
10 wins.
So 10-2 year. 10-2 year.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I have them dropping games to. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna depend on this Clemson game because the Clemson one is the big question mark.
Yeah,
but I think they're gonna be able outside of a Clemson game early on. They should be undefeated until they face South Carolina.
I was gonna say, don't spoil that one yet. I know you want to save that for the Mushing Hour, a little bit on, but yeah, I mean, hosting of Florida definitely helps. Going to Ole Miss is gonna be a little bit of a tricky game, but I'm not sure how I feel about Ole Miss going into the season. But of course, they have to go to Tuscaloosa as well, so I'm already concerned about that game because
that's the game where they're going to lose. They're going to definitely lose. That's the one game they're definitely going to lose.
If you remember what happened last year, they had lost that game. I'm trying to remember who they lost to. I think it was to Ole Miss. They lost to Ole Miss, and they got him back into the playoff picture by winning a couple games afterwards, and then they played Bama at home. It was a primetime game. Everyone was going nuts at Death Valley, and they got beaten down by Alabama that game. I think it was a 41-14 final in that one, and that's where like stuff like that concerns me because now you go into Tuscaloosa this year. Not saying that Bama is going to be the same offensive team as they were last season. Of course, Ryan Williams is going to help them a lot, but I mean, it is almost impossible to go into that stadium and win on the road. You ask any coach, even if it's not Nick Saban at the helm, it's still impossible to win there. And I also look at that week 8, that last game against number 18 Oklahoma. That could be a trap game. I don't think Oklahoma is going to be that great this season, but going into Norman is also not an easy task for any team as well. So LSU, I think, could be a playoff team, but there are some games on their schedule that definitely concern me where they're kind of one of those teams that are teetering on playoff, making the playoff, and not making the playoff. They're just one of those teams to me that one thing can turn into another, and they can potentially miss it all completely. So I do like Nussmeier getting back, at least coming back. That's a big help for them. For me, I probably did this last year. I did not take Georgia. Okay, I was at least smart last year not to do this. I'm not going to be smart enough to do it this year, though. I'm going to pick Texas. I'm not happy about it, and my reasoning is going to be: I think Texas is going to be the top defense in the entire country coming up this season. I think they have so much talent on that defense, and I think we're going to see it upcoming this weekend against Ohio State. I think we're going to be in for a nice defensive battle. Now that I said that, it will probably be a shootout, but I do think that Texas's defense is one of the top 5 defenses in the entire country. I think Arch Manning, this is obviously the big storyline for maybe all of college football outside of the Bill Belichick stuff. we've been waiting for this kid to start for how many years now? 3, pretty much. And now he's finally getting this opportunity. And if everything turns out to what everyone's expecting it to turn out to be, then Texas is going to be where they're currently ranked right now, the number one team in the country, the favorite to win the national championship potentially, and of course, maybe the team to beat in the SEC. I think, obviously, looking at their schedule, it's not an easy schedule. Having to start off your season with Ohio State in a potential national championship game, who knows, or a potential college football playoff game, not easy whatsoever. They have to play Texas A&M, of course, during the season. They have to go to Florida. They have to go to Georgia. It's not going to be easy. I think there's a possibility that they're where you have LSU as a 2-loss team, but I still think they can get the job done as a 2-loss team and win the Big. And I almost said Big 12. I keep thinking they're still in the Big 12, but I think they can lose 2 games and still be the SEC champion at the end of the day. So I would go with Texas to be my SEC champion for the upcoming season.
All right, so let's go into our college football playoff teams. Nick, would you want me to rattle off my 1 to 12, or how would you like to approach this?
So before I reapproach it, I think I mentioned it earlier. I'll just reiterate it. It's not for the upcoming season. The new wrinkle that they added was, as we saw last year, the top 4 conference champions were the top 4 seeds in the college football playoff. The wrinkle that they have fixed this season is now that just the top 4 teams in general are the top 4 seeds in the college football playoff. So conference championships still do matter at the end of the day, but they do not matter in terms of seeding, in terms of college football playoff. So let's say if it was like last year with Arizona State, where I think they were the 12th ranked team in the country, but they got a top 4 seed. Arizona State would be the 12th ranked team in the country, would be the number 12th seed in the college football playoff, depending on, of course, where the group of 5 team is as well. But the group of 5 team still gets a spot, of course, and the remaining top 11 teams in the country are the next 11 teams in the college football playoff. So that's the only wrinkle I wanted to add there. You can go ahead, Johnson, if you want to rattle off your 12-team college football playoff for the upcoming season. I think you did the best out of the two of us last year. I think you got 7.
7? Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, 7 of the 12 teams. I think I finished just behind you with 6. So
yeah, 7 beginning of the year, and I'm not gonna pick A&M this time, so that'll give me a guaranteed at least avoidance.
That had to hurt, huh?
Yeah, well, all right. In no
All right,
particular order, I have Clemson, Colorado, Oregon, LSU. And when I say Colorado, it's just really the big. It's spoiler. It's the Big 12 representative. So
right,
whoever wins the
Big
12 is going to be here. So
yes.
I have Clemson, Colorado, Oregon, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Penn State, and now this is where it gets a little bit spicy. South Carolina.
Okay, you have South Carolina in there.
Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
Miami as another ACC representative, and of course Notre Dame. I wanted to make you guys sweat a little bit.
And by you guys, you mean Sir Notre Dame fans?
Yes.
Yeah, I think before we didn't really mention Notre Dame, and it's tough to really talk about them when you're not. I mean, I'm not gonna bring up the whole conference thing or whatever, but they're not gonna be in the Power 4 conference preview, of course. But Notre Dame, of course, having also has a quarterback change this year as well. They're going with freshman CJ Carr at the helm, and he's got a tough task this coming weekend against Miami. But look at those first 2 games at Miami and then home against A&M. Not easy. Not going to be 2 easy games. But if they get past those 2 games, you tend to think that they probably should be fine the rest of the way. I think the only game outside of that's going to be tough for them, maybe at Pitt, maybe a home game against Boise. So I think, as much as I hate to say it, they probably should be back there, but maybe we'll be proven wrong. Who knows? So
yeah, I mean, I can't imagine they don't make it back there.
Yeah, I would be kind of shocked if they didn't. So with that being said, I will put them in my college football playoff as well. With my Power 4 champions, which I'll round off quickly, were Clemson, Penn State, Texas, and Utah. I'll put Notre Dame in there for my 5th team. After that, I'm going to go with Ohio State. I think it would be a no-brainer not to put them in there. I will go with Alabama. I will go. See, this is where it gets tricky. I probably should write these down too because I'm going to already forget how many teams I put in. I mean, surely, right? I'll go with LSU. I don't want to, but
Yeah, I mean, you
if
have to go with LSU.
if they don't make it, Brian Kelly has to be fired. Has to be. There's just no other way around it. You have to fire him at the end of the season. I will go with Georgia as well. I think I already mentioned that if I didn't. I just think there's really realistically no shot they don't make it. Um, I'm gonna have. I think I'm gonna have a shocker for you. I'm gonna have two Big 12 teams in here. I'm gonna put Texas Tech. I think they're gonna play Utah in the Big 12 championship game. And I think no matter what happens in that game, I think both teams will get in regardless. I think that's just going to be a game for seeding purposes. I will go with Miami. Again, you added Carson Beck. If you don't make the college football playoff for the second straight year after having Cam Ward last year and now Carson Beck this year, I'm just saying Mario Cristobal needs to be looked at if he doesn't make it this year after wasting 2 years of potential good quarterback play. So I'll leave with that. My final two teams, I'm still trying to think about my group of five winner. I think I have an idea of who I'm going to take for that. In terms of my last Power Five, I guess you want to call it that. I will go. I probably should go Oregon. I probably should, but I won't. I'm going to go with Michigan.
Wow. Okay.
I will go with Michigan. I think Bryce Underwood's going to revitalize that program to where they need to be. Not saying they're going to be stellar. They probably might lose 3 games, but we saw last year 3 losses can still get you into the college football playoff potentially. And then for my group of five,
Just pick the blue turf.
yeah, but that's too easy, Johnson. We don't want to do that.
You want to be right, or you
I'm
want to get
gonna
it wrong?
go with the sexy pick, and that is James Madison, the Dukes. I want the Dukes in. Give me James Madison in the college football playoff. I am still upset from 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, where they were a Division One program for the first year, and the NCAA told them you could not play in a bowl game. So I want some restitution for them, and I want them in the college football playoff. And they will probably lose by 30 to 40 points, and I won't care. Put them in the college football playoff. Give me the Dukes as my group of five winner to make the CFP this year. I was so close with Tulane last year. So close. Did either? No, you had Liberty. I was gonna say, did either of us pick the right to pick Boise?
I picked Liberty.
Yeah, we didn't know about Ashton Genty just yet. But
About 3 games of the season, we know.
yeah. But speaking of Ashton Genty, he was a runner-up for the Heisman Trophy last season, and let's talk about that Heisman Trophy winner, Johnson. Of course, won by Travis Hunter last year. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna ask you for who your pick is to win the Heisman Trophy, and if you have a sleeper pick to win the Heisman Trophy as well.
Kate Klubnik is my pick, and my sleeper is Lenora Sellers. I've alluded to both these picks earlier on the show. So how about some full circle picks?
Okay. I'm gonna go. Hmm. It's tough because I love my sleeper pick, and I don't know if I love my actual pick. That's the weird part. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Arch Manning, and I don't like it. I don't like it. He's probably the favorite to win it, and I think this is just basing it off of where I think Texas is going to finish at the end of the season. But my sleeper pick is Jeremiah Love out of Notre Dame, and I don't like that either because you know how I feel about Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's a
But
true
I
sleeper pick. I would have never imagined him picking that in a million years.
but my reasoning is this: when you have a freshman quarterback, what's the best way to take some pressure off of him is run the football, get that pressure off. We saw what Jeremiah Love did in the college football playoff last season, how vital he is to that Notre Dame offense. I think if Notre Dame is going to get back there, it's going to be off the back of Jeremiah Love. So I have him as my sleeper. You could get that like plus 3,000 odds. I might take that every single day of the week. So give me Jeremiah Love as my sleeper. And I didn't put this in our spreadsheet. I probably should have. I don't know why I didn't. Um, do you want to save it after the mushing hour for our national champion pick? What do you
That's an
think?
excellent question. Let's wait till after the
Let's do the
mushing
mushing
hour.
hour first. Okay.
You can start us off with the mushing
All
hour.
right. Well, folks, it's our favorite part of the entire podcast where we do these segments for previews and, of course, for the entirety of the season. It is the mushing hour, week number 1 of the college football season. For Johnson, for those that don't know what the mushing hour entails, what is that? What's the story about that?
Well, I think you and I were kind of sitting around one day, and I said, the witching hour, it's a play on red zone when wins become losses and losses become wins. So it's the same thing here. It's when winners become losers and losers become winners just because we both picked the same team.
And as you mentioned earlier on, last year was a not a great year for us. We've had some great years in previous years for college football, NFL, and all the sports, but college football was a little bit of a rough year. I think looking back at it, we're gonna as you mentioned, clean slate for us this year in 2025, 2026. And there's no better way to get that clean slate started, but with 7 big games this upcoming weekend, including which I don't think we've ever had in week 1, 3 games where top 10 teams are playing each other. I don't remember the last time that's ever happened. And we get to see that all coming this weekend. I am looking forward to this week so much for college football. But before we get to those 3 big games, let's start it off with our first game, which is going to happen at noon kickoff on Saturday. It is going to be Syracuse taking on number 24 Tennessee. This game going to be played in Atlanta, Georgia. Tennessee is a 13.5 point favorite. The over under 50.5. Johnson, I'm a little bit worried about this game. Syracuse lost a lot of talent this past season. I'm being a Syracuse fan, of course. Hopeful for them this season, but a very daunting task for them in week 1, playing this neutral site game against Tennessee. What are your thoughts on this game?
Cuse is going to lose by 13 points, which means 13.5 is the play. Give me Cuse spread. You guys are going to lose by a touchdown and 2 field goals. Let's go, Cuse. Taking the underdogs. Cuse plus 13.5 is the play this week. But hey, what do I know?
You know me, I wouldn't be too upset if they, put up a good fight and they lost.
Yeah, you go into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, you're going to be tied. It's going to be like 27, It would be like, maybe 17-17, and then you're going to lose 30-17 or something like that, but you'll have fun for a little bit.
It's weird because we're coming off a 9-3 season, or 10-3, I should say, kind of in the bowl game as well. But you're playing teams like Tennessee this year. We go to Clemson this year. We're playing at SMU. Duke, I think, is going to be good. Pitt might be good. Georgia Tech might be good. Belichick's coming to the Carrier Dome. I know it's not the Carrier Dome anymore. It's still the Carrier Dome to me. And then they go to Miami and Notre Dame towards the end of the season. It is a very tough schedule for the Orange this season. But you know what? Might as well back it and probably mush them to all, whatever this upcoming weekend. I will take Q's plus 13.5 as well. And I'm going to sprinkle the over as well in this game. I think there'll be points scored. The first 2 for this year, Johnson, for me. The
All
first
right,
2
first
for.
mush of the year. We have both picked Cuse plus 13.5, which brings us to our second game. We have the number 8 Alabama Crimson Tide going into Florida State to take on the Seminoles unranked. Alabama, despite being on the road, is a 13.5 point favorite. Over under also slated at 50.5. How do you like that? I'm also taking the
Yeah.
underdog here because Florida State's at home and
Ooh.
Alabama's going to need to do some fine tuning before they get going. So give me FSU plus 13.5.
Well, here's the good thing about Florida State that we've seen this guy already play. That was, remember Thomas Castellanos? I think that's how you pronounce the last name. I know it
Yeah,
was
BC.
weird. He was the Boston College quarterback. Of course, what they did last season, including them going into Tallahassee and beating Florida State. He's now the starting quarterback for the Seminoles team. And what a way to kick off your tenure at helm at Florida State by hosting the number 8 team in Alabama, who, as I mentioned, is going to have a quarterback change of their own. But I just think Alabama is still heads and shoulders above them. I have to believe it until I see it. I know people are saying Florida State might have a better year this year. I'm gonna wait and see. I'm gonna go with Bama minus 13.5 in this game. I can't trust it yet. Can't trust it yet. But John, let's talk about one of your teams that you had in your college football playoff, that being the South Carolina Gamecocks. An interesting game for them. They are also playing in Atlanta, Georgia this week. I believe their game is on Monday or Sunday. I will double check that real quick. I know it's not Saturday. I think it's Monday. It is Sunday. Never mind. All right. I retract that statement. Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock kickoff, Virginia Tech versus South Carolina in Atlanta, Georgia. South Carolina, an 8-point favorite in this game. The over-under is 52.5.
I'm going to take the favorite here. University of South Carolina -8. Virginia Tech, awesome home campus or on campus experience. Enter
Yes.
Sandman's one of the top 5 traditions in college football, but you're not
Yes.
getting that on the neutral site here away from home. So it's it's gonna be more of a South Carolina home game than it is Virginia Tech. So give me Virginia Tech minus. I'm sorry, South Carolina -8. Excuse me.
This game's weird because I feel like people are talking about Virginia Tech in a good light this year. But I also like South Carolina. I love the sleeper pick you gave with Lenore Sellers. I'm a big fan of him. I really do think he could potentially win the Heisman Trophy this year. Um, I think if South Carolina's going to get over that daunting schedule we talked about earlier, they have to make an early statement in the Week 1 season, and that could be definitely done against Virginia Tech. I'm going to stay away from a winner in this game, and I'm going to take the over in this game too. I think there will be a good amount of points scored between the two teams. I think Virginia Tech's offense could be a little bit better, or at least in their sakes, there hopefully will be a lot better than what they were last season. And I think Sellers and company are going to, go back and forth with them offensively. If I had to pick a winner in this game in terms of the spread, I probably might take the Virginia Tech +8. I think they might lose this game by a touchdown. It's too close to call. So give me the over. And talk about the Monday Night Football game we have. The first Monday Night Football game, even though it's not NFL football, but it's a big college football game on Monday night.
The battle of the Big 12 and ACC. We have Texas Christian University going against North Carolina. Bill Belichick in prime time Monday Night Football once again. TCU is a 3-point favorite, and the over/under is slated at 56.5. Give me North Carolina +3. I think they win this game outright, but give me the points.
I knew you were going to do that. What do you think? In all curiosity, where do you think How do you think North Carolina finishes this season?
8 wins.
You think they're going to win 8 games?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think my ceiling for them was 7 wins, so we're not too far off. I'm curious to see how it all goes for Bill. Their schedule definitely plays into their hand, I think, a little bit. They're not playing too tough a schedule, but there are some games where it's pretty much a 50-50 coin toss. So, and this is one of those games too. So, I'm going to go TCU -3. I'm going to go on the opposite side. I just think the Horned Frogs, I think they're a sleeper in the Big 12 too. I know it's not saying much because, like we said earlier, any team can win that conference. But I need to see one game out of North Carolina first until I can decide on how I think they're going to do this season. I think I'm just not there yet. I know what TCU could bring to the table. North Carolina is the question mark right now in all of college football. So for the time being, I will just take the Horned Frogs -3 to get the job done on Monday night. Now, speaking of our 3 games that we mentioned earlier on for between top 10 opponents, let's start with the first of those 3 matchups. It's a big one in Miami between number 6 Notre Dame at number 10 Miami. It's an old rivalry renewed between these two teams. Notre Dame going on the road is a 2.5-point favorite. Over under 49.5 for this game. What do you got, Johnson?
And this is why Notre Dame is going to drop out of that top 5, top 10 ranking because they're going to lose to Miami. Miami +2.5. The U is going to be back in big ways, and Notre Dame is going to lose probably its biggest game on its schedule. Maybe second biggest game on its schedule.
I think this is the biggest because I mentioned after this, it's the A&M game. That's probably the biggest game.
It's going to depend on how these teams end up doing. So
yeah,
it's going to be either one or two.
Yeah, and for Miami, I think you look at their schedule too. After the Notre Dame game, their next biggest games are Florida and SMU. So they definitely have some tough games too. But yeah, I really want to pick Miami. I kind of wish I went first because I do think Miami can win this game, but do I go? You know what? I'm gonna go with the over. I'm just gonna play it safe, take the over. I need to see Miami's defense was really bad last season. I don't know if they're any much. I really don't think they're any much better than they were last year. So that was my only concern with picking them into the college football playoff. I pretty much was that was just basically a I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, I'm still concerned about their defense. So just give me the over in a game where it's 50 points. You have to get to the over. I think that could definitely be done
Yep.
between these two teams. So give me the over between Notre Dame and Miami. What's our second big game for the top 10 matchups this week?
Number 9 LSU. The Tigers taking on the Tigers. So number 9 LSU taking on number 4 Clemson. Clemson is a
Great game.
3.5 point favorite at home. 57.5 is the slated over under. Give me LSU plus 3.5.
Okay.
I'm not gonna tell you who I think wins this game because they're both,
Yeah,
they're
definitely
both in my national. They're both the potential national champions for me. But I'm gonna take the points here in a close game.
A little bit of a potential early spoiler, and for that potentially, who knows? Yeah. I mean, it's tough. I mean, when it's and you and I have always said this when it's a 3.5 point spread, it is the worst spread to bet on because you could easily lose on a the team you're taking 3.5 up. They only won by a field goal, so you lost the bet by half a point. But if you're an LSU fan, you take the LSU plus 3.5. Oh, they lost the game, but they still covered. So that's all that matters. Tough, tough one to pick. Two good teams, as you mentioned, could be two teams in the college football playoff. Could be two teams playing for a national championship. I'm with you that I think they'll both be in there as well. I'm gonna go Clemson plus minus 3.5. I'm just gonna stick with my gut on this one. I want to take LSU, but they I'm still worried, even though I picked them in my college football playoff. I'm still worried about how they play under the bright lights, and this is one of the toughest places to play in all of college football. Um, we'll see. Maybe they prove me wrong, but I'm not ready to take them just yet. So I'll go with the Clemson Tigers minus 3.5 in that big showdown in Death Valley, and then of course Johnson. It's the game of the week, potential game of the year. And just week number 1, we're getting this game. It's a potential national championship preview we have for this one. Number 1, Texas going into Columbus to take on number 3, Ohio State. The Buckeyes are a 2.5 point favorite with the spread at 47, or excuse me, the over under at 47.5 for this one. Who do you got in this game?
So here's my bold prediction. These teams will meet again in the college football playoffs. Whether it's in the first, second, semifinals, championship match, whatever it is. These two teams will win again.
We saw them in the semifinal last year.
But the winner of this game will be losing in January.
So
that's my guarantee. Without all that being said, Texas is still not back. And I have them losing but covering against Ohio State solely because the game is in Ohio. If this game was in Texas, it's in Austin, it's a different story. However, that's going to swing it just enough for me with that tough home field advantage. So give me Texas plus 2.5.
I'm going to go with Texas money line. I'm just going to go straight money line for this pick. And it comes down to what I said earlier. I think Texas, I said that these two teams are two of the top 5 defenses in all of the country. So it comes down to quarterback play in those type of games where you have a redshirt freshman quarterback in Julian Sayin getting the start for Ohio State this season, and you have Arch Manning, who hasn't really played too much, but has been in that system long enough to where he should know how to go up against these pressures type of situations. I think he gets the job done on the road. I picked him to win the Heisman Trophy this upcoming season. I think he makes that early implication for the upcoming season, gets the win in Columbus, and shows why Texas is the best team in the country going into the remainder of the season, starting off in week 1. I would go with the Longhorns to win outright in Columbus. That is my bold prediction for that game this upcoming Saturday noon kickoff. And then Johnson, like we mentioned earlier on, let's wrap up our show here with our national championship winner this upcoming season. Who do you have winning the national championship? And if you want, you can even pick who you have in your championship game.
Oh man, this way I tell you LSU, and I just completely just whatever I just said, just throw it out
Yeah,
the
yeah.
window. It's a tough one. So the Natty, you have a lot of great teams, right? I don't think Texas is back. I don't think Ohio State's back. So I'm going to pick a non-conference champion, and I'm going to say that Georgia climbs to the top here. We haven't talked about them
Ooh,
at all. Georgia gets in as like a
yeah.
6 seed, and they climb to the top.
Okay. National champion. I mean, listen, you can't really go wrong picking Georgia as your national champion anytime. And if you want, I'll give top 10 odds for national championship. It's Ohio State and Texas tied. That's Penn State, Georgia, Clemson rounds of the top five, and then it's followed by Bama, Notre Dame, LSU, Oregon, and Michigan, rounding out the top 10 in terms of odds for this upcoming season in the national championship for the 2025-2026 season. So you have Georgia. Did you pick a team that they were playing? I don't know. I don't know if you said that second part.
No, no, they're gonna play the Ghost of Christmas Past for all I care. They're probably gonna win it all.
Okay. All right. I like that. All right. That's some Ebenezer Scrooge tomfoolery in the national championship game. Okay. Um, I mean, all indications would say I'm picking Texas, right? With the amount of talk I've said about
Yeah,
them this season, right?
yeah, I think so.
Well, that's where you're wrong, Johnson. I'm not picking Texas. I think they get all the other stuff done. They're not going to win the national championship this season. My national championship game is going to be between the Clemson Tigers and the Penn State Indian Lions. And as
Disgusting.
it's not ideal. And for me, I have the Clemson Tigers taking it all down and winning the national championship this season. And you know how much that pains me to say that. But I just think Kate Klubnik is going to prove why he's a potential top five, maybe top two pick in the NFL draft for the upcoming season. I think he gets the job done. He wins a national championship for Clemson, puts them back at the pedestal of being, one of those top tier programs in all of college football. They win the national championship this season by beating Penn State in the Natty for the upcoming 2025-2026 season. That is my prediction for how this season wraps up. So, yeah, we'll see how this all goes. Hopefully, for you and I, our picks are a lot better than last season. I at least hope that. But week one will be an early test to see if that's going to be the case. Any final thoughts you have before we wrap this one up?
It's a miracle we've made it this long without football, and I
Oh,
can't wait to see what
you
this
know what
season
I
brings.
you know what I will say? I felt like this was in between the national championship to now. I feel like it. I don't. I know it's crazy to
It's
say.
the off season. I know what you're gonna say. It didn't feel that long. It's because
It
we
didn't
have
feel
an
that
off season
long.
now. We have an
It
off
didn't feel that
season now.
long.
That's why.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. I don't know why. It just didn't feel long. It didn't feel like it was that crazy. Of a delay in between where we ended last season and where we're going to this season. And but it still makes me excited regardless either way because having those three matches that we talked about to end the mushing hour, those three alone make this upcoming weekend worth the wait because you have those three that all could be teams that are playing in the college football playoff at the end of the season. So I'm looking forward to it. 100%. But what I'm also looking forward to, Johnson? The NFL season is just around the corner. That is kicking off next Thursday night. And you and I will be back here on the show next week. We'll have a 2 episode show here on the All Gas No Breaks Sports Show. We'll have our college football week 1 recapping, of course, all the games that went down in week 1, previewing week number 2, and then in our second episode, we will be previewing the upcoming NFL season for 2025-2026. Be making our picks for division winners, conference winners, and of course our Super Bowl champion as well as NFL MVP. And for you and I, Johnson, hopefully our teams do well this season because last year was not fun. Not fun at all. But we'll see what happens. Well, that will all be covered next week here on the show. But for us this week, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. The 2025-2026 college football season is almost right around the corner. Saturday, the slate of games gets kicked off with a big showdown between Texas and Ohio State. We also have LSU taking on Clemson, Notre Dame and Miami, just a little bit of an appetizer for what this season could be entailing and who potentially wins a national championship at the end of this upcoming season. This has been Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by my co-host Andrew Johnson for the All Gas Don't Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy your 2025-2026 college football season.